Oh, sorry, I was watching the video you put. Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, but your stream is just static right now. You don't
That's
have your
also fun.
Discord stream on.
So if I spam the look at it button for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. I assume because I have no idea actually why, but because it should be every time I enter, it should send the words, and every time I exit, it should clear them. But if I spam it, I can get like words caught in there, letters caught
Yeah,
in there.
see, weird. Whatever. I mean, there's null references happening. That's probably what it is, right? Oh no, those are the draw controller references. Right, that's annoying.
Only two of those are should be for the draw, right? Or because one
One,
of
so you're
them.
getting one null reference, but that seems to be move next for the line. It happened only once.
Hmm.
I'm slowly working my way through and making everything work now. With the new
Do
setup.
you think it would be possible? Because as I'm thinking up puzzles, I started thinking up actual puzzles today. Do you think it would be possible to put a rune on something that moves if the rune itself doesn't need to? So what I was thinking is it could just move with the thing and the mesh would move with the thing. And in order to like not deal with any of the shit that has to do with movement and that stuff, it just like if the rune's on the moving thing and you enter its field or anything that enters in its field that would activate it, the moving thing just stops moving for a second while that happens. Um,
Wait, what's the problem? Why would we need to stop it? Because we could do moving shit. It depends on we just have to program with the idea of things moving in mind, right?
yeah,
What's wrong with?
I just think it's easy. I would just rather have it that way either way, honestly, because like, well, I guess yeah, as
The
long as
only
it's
difference
not.
is right now I don't have like the runes right now themselves don't move with the things. They don't get parented or attached to the thing that they're on. So really what we would probably do would be just have some sort of script
For the vertical slice, though, I was
or
thinking like
uh,
if we could have the ability to put something on a moving platform, even if it stopped that platform for a second when the thing was activated, so we don't have to recode anything.
well,
Um,
there's no. I mean, for activating it, it just takes a picture, and who cares? It doesn't matter. It'll take a picture on the rune itself at the position of the rune at the time that the rune is
yeah,
drawn.
the only place it actually is gets weird at all. Well, I don't know about
I mean, drawing on it is going to be weird, like because the rune doesn't move with the drawing doesn't move with the thing itself, um,
yeah.
and it's going to be hard to draw on a moving object.
Yeah, so maybe when you're drawing on it and when the rune is the reason I said when the rune is becoming active is because I would have to redo the repel and the attract to account for that. So like
Yeah. Well,
um
the repel and the attract are being redone. I'm keeping your core code, but they're getting a lot smaller in general.
but either way in general like the even if we did redo it for the repel and attract right like even if it works perfectly. If the thing keeps on moving, right, and you do the shake animation, you're traveling along with the thing as you're doing the shake, I guess, and then
Mhm.
you shoot off or shoot to it. But I still think it will look like you'll be always be a little bit trailing behind it by the time the momentum is applied to you, which will look weird in a way, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, it depends on how big the attraction force is, right? But I think for the vertical slice we avoid moving bodies for now, just because
Damn.
it does complicate
It's like
things.
half my puzzles that are gone then. But that's fine. I can.
It just makes it easier. I mean, let's just get some puzzles in, and if we can think, and then if we have the time, feel like we have the time or want to add more complexity, then we can add it. But for now, I think it makes sense just to keep it because there are things we need to think about like drawing on a moving surface, even if it moves slowly, is going to be weird. We have to make sure the drawings stick to the surface properly, which shouldn't be too hard, but we do have to do that. And then we also would need to consider like, okay, this is really going to reveal the fact that like if you don't have time to draw the whole rune, you're gonna try to draw half of the rune and then draw the half of the other half of the rune, right? And then it's gonna get weird. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it's not. I would be fine with like ditching the whole like, oh, draw half of it when it's in this position and the other half when it's in that position, and just having a thing stop when you're drawing on it, like just for ease of like I don't want the player to be hung up on like, oh, I
I mean,
couldn't
at
do the
that point, we
drawing.
should just do it as like it's a thing that the player can release. Like you press a button and the thing starts to move, and then comes back to you, and then it stops. Or you press a button to start it, then press a button to stop it, and you can
Once
put
you
it in
can
a
press a
position to
button
draw
though,
on
the
the
player
player.
can try to draw on it while it's moving though, and dealing with
Yeah, they can.
that would be, you still have to deal with that contingency.
Yeah, you do. Let's for now. Let's just try to focus on simpler puzzles for that not moving. There's plenty of stuff we can do with not moving objects, but
Yeah, there is a
the
lot of
moving objects I think should be
the
like oh, that's cool. Like I feel like that's at the end of the vertical slice where you say, oh man, and then think about what else you could do.
yeah. I want to I at least maybe want to do an elevator or something like that.
Mhm. Right now, the doors are programmed in that with the understanding that they're stationary. But it wouldn't be too hard to change them to make them moving doors. But then I'd have to recalculate. Like I load or hold on to a matrix in their like a matrix inside their code their class that I just make that matrix the first time that the door is made, then I reuse that matrix every time I need to do a transform across the doors, like anytime you do a warp. It's just a stored loaded matrix to make it more efficient and stuff. But
Any chance you
uh
could get a door frame in there? I was gonna try and do that, but I don't know if I'll, in terms of vertical slice stuff, I don't know how fast
at
I would
some
be.
point, I'm not right now. I'm focused just on getting this stuff to be able to interact with each other because that is something that needs to be done. Like these things need to interact well on layered on top of each other, basically, right? So that's what I'm working on now is getting that stuff in and the good control scheme,
That is something
and
that
then
needs to
once
be
that comes,
done. I was going to solve that by just having any two runes that are too close to each other have the second one you put down immediately fizzle.
well, not that, but I mean, I guess if you, yeah, I just mean their areas of effect, right? So like,
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
Anything that could overlap with anything else,
yeah.
like it's still
Well, this
gonna
is
be.
we should solve it earlier because
No,
the earlier we solve it,
that is a
better it'll be.
high priority thing for sure.
I'm working on the track rune now because I figured it would be easier than the duplicate rune though. They're all pretty easy in turn. I just need to what is this body? Oh, shake uses body, which is not what we need. We need shake to use the controlled object now.
But maybe what I'll do is I want moving objects in the puzzles, but I don't necessarily. Actually, none of the puzzles rely on you drawing on the moving things. The moving things are just like doors that open and shut, and platforms that would move or not move. That sort of thing. Just like means of conveyance to an area, less so than something I would need you to draw on. So maybe I'll just make them like a black material or something that's like just a thing that you can't draw on.
Yeah, we can make it the non-drawable material for sure. Like
Just
we need to. I'll come up with a what you call it for that, a just a quick shader for that, something that looks pretty. So like maybe something that just something that is like onyx black, has some good reflection, like has some shininess to it, some specular to it, and then has some like sparkle or something in it would be nice.
still have not figured out what repel does if you put it on the ceiling. I haven't tried that yet. Does it behave? I would expect it to. Actually, the way it is now, the collider for it is so small that you would almost never. I'd have to like set it up where I climbed up something to test it.
What's the activation time actually doing in the attract rune? It doesn't seem like anything happens after the activation time ticks down. It just seems like it goes straight into the shake time, right?
Um, I don't know. I did that so long ago. Attract. Sorry, console. Attract. Um, activation time.
Hmm.
Is it used even if Oh, I might not. Maybe I don't use that anymore. I think maybe that might be a thing for a while. I was like, when does this thing turn on? Like, when does it actually turn on and start shaking you? Like,
Yeah, I couldn't tell. Like I saw it gets set at some point, but then it seems like to just get overridden. So I just want to make sure I'm missing
I'm
something.
not sure about it. I might have had it in where at one point it was just timing based. If you spent enough time inside the rune, it would set off, and then I changed it to a model where like if you were, I think right now the way it works is if you are fully encompassed by the shape of it, it
Okay.
activates, and so that might not do anything anymore.
All right, that's fine. So let's do that. Let's give it this, which is a start. How do I return early from a coroutine? I'm also replacing all your timers with coroutines because they're it's like a 7 byte or something or 7 bit overhead to run them, but like we shouldn't be running that many. Like I think that you could run like 1,000 without it being an issue, and we're not going to run 1,000 rune interactions at the same time. But I'd be surprised if we ran 100 rune interactions at the same time.
That's fine.
But the coroutines are nice in that like they're just like these isolated pieces of like you could think of them as like a pseudo thread. They're just these isolated pieces of code where like I define my time in the coroutine to be 0, and then for that object that or for that specific coroutine that you start it with the start coroutine function, and when I start that coroutine, that time is specific to that coroutine that I started. So then the next time I start a coroutine, I can set a separate the same. I can have the same code time equals 0, and that's a different time equals 0. So then I don't have to have like manual countdowns or stuff. I just need to know the time that I'm counting up to, and then the coroutine will handle the rest. Or rather, I'll handle the timing inside the coroutine, and I don't need to worry about like resetting timers and shit like that. It's nice. You'll see it when you get into it. It shortens code significantly when we have it. Um, Yield break is what I want. Else yield break. If the raycast does not hit the object, yield break. Um. Okay. I'm sure something's broken. Let's see if this works.
I don't think we really actually need to worry about this on a ceiling because like, well, let's put this low. See what happens. Ceiling is low enough that I could get stuck in it forever.
Man, sometimes that laptop of mine runs a scene at like 120 frames per second. Sometimes it runs it at 15 frames per second, and I don't know what the difference is.
I didn't really like my video got real framey when I was, you know, running the game. Is that like, is that always happening? Right,
Your video?
yeah, like my stream when I went to go clip
No.
that, everything except for the when I went into the camera, like all granted I was doing it in full screen, which I don't normally do.
Um, well, full screen should be more efficient because you're only rendering once. You're not rendering with the scene camera too. Um, I don't know. We'll have to take a look at We'll have to keep monitoring the performance over time. Like theoretically, none of the drawing stuff should matter if
I mean, on my screen it
once it's
looks
not
fine.
running.
It's running fine. I'm just wondering why my stream is so
Mm.
bad while it's happening.
And something about Unity makes me sometimes think that it like I don't know that something weird happens with it. What am I doing here? So this does a shake. All right, let's turn off the activate time because we don't. It doesn't do anything. So I'll simplify that. Oh, duh. That's why.
Also, when you get a chance in your version, could you redo the thing where redo the thing where we can't draw on old invisible runes,
Oh yeah, that's definitely up there. I'll do that.
and then the other thing I wanted. Oh, I can do this, but I was gonna do a dispel rune that just turns off all runes in case anyone during the vertical slice breaks anything, you know, so they don't have to fully restart if they've fucked themselves over somehow with a rune. If I just get all the runes, get all the if I just get all the runes actually and destroy them, is that all I need to do to get rid of them?
Um, sorry, say it again.
If I want to have a button that like a dispel button that the player can hit to just get rid of all the runes basically simultaneously, like in case they break anything or whatever, and we don't want to have them restart entirely while they're doing their playthrough. Um, would
You
just
should just be able to find all. I mean, I think you can just do a find all objects of type rune and just destroy that.
and that's the only thing I need to destroy. I don't need to destroy like the. I want the drawings to disappear with them ideally, so that they're not, you know, so it's not confusing if they want to
Probably just
continue playing.
going up to the parent of each and destroying from the parent. I don't know. I don't remember. I think that they have like the runes come underneath the parent, if I remember right. Let me check. Like I don't remember why I make a parent object, but I think I do. Oh, maybe probably because the parent is the drawing, so I don't want to. So I want us to be able to reorient the runes separately. Uh, But then I guess actually that is kind of counterintuitive because you wound up. I realize now that you needed it to be the other way because you did like for when you rotated, you needed them to be separated. Yeah, so it's the rune itself is the parent, so you should be fine just destroying the rune. But remember for the oh, I'm sorry, the drawing itself is the parent. Hold on, what the fuck? No, the drawing is the child, the rune is the parent. Okay, yeah, the rune is the parent, the drawing is the child. So finding all instances of rune should break it. But remember for the box rune, the attract rune, you separate those two. So you might have to look for drawings and runes. Um, for that specific case, or we can rework how that one works, and we won't have to worry about it at all. Um, I'm thinking we will need to rework the drawing one anyway to not, or the attract to not be a square, a box collider, because the box collider can't rotate on the z-axis, which is like insanely annoying.
For the sorry for the retract repel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was thinking about making it a. I don't know if you looked at my older text, but I was saying for a while I've thought about making it a sphere or a capsule collider. But I was waiting on what the um you know what the final design of it would be, or to come up with something a design that's more like the other ones where there's some form function to it, but I hadn't thought of one yet.
Yeah, I kind of like that I might want not to have the snapping, but I don't want it to be a box collider either. I wonder if it's just simple enough that we don't need to do a collider and we could just have it check to see. Well, no, a collider is probably more efficient. We should have a collider.
I
Um,
don't want the player like ever thinking about I don't want the player like being like, oh, if I redraw this on this little rock over here, maybe that'll be a few degrees better, and then I'll get like that. I
well, we
got
could
like
just
that
design around that, but I want them to have that choice.
in the puzzle areas, but in the open world, like in terms of like getting around and knowing what the player's jumping on, I just think it's a much better puzzle conceit. And I would do the
Yeah,
same
but
thing
then if I
with
if
the
I
doors,
draw something
honestly.
on to me personally, I think if I draw something on a 45 degree angle and it locks to a 90,
We could do an 8 then if you want it, if you
even
really
then,
wanted
if
diagonals,
I
but
still
like
think that if I draw something at like a 15-degree angle and it locks to a 45, I think that'll feel weird and unintuitive. But we can play around with it. My point about the box collider was just that the box collider can't be rotated along the z-axis, so it will never be used. Like it can will never be able to 100% of the time make it match the box rune, like a square rune. So we need to
yeah,
just
that's
change it
we
to a
can make it a
different
circle. That's fine.
circle, like a circle or whatever it needs to be. Something a cylinder, as long as the cylinder can rotate that way, which I believe it can.
The only thing with the circle is then it becomes much like for the attract, it becomes much it has to be much larger in order to fit the player inside of it. Um, but
Well, you
like
don't need
that's
to. Well,
fine.
yeah, I know this that you have the inside the bounds or whatever. But you could probably just calculate a distance from the center bounds, and that would work. Like find the center of your bounds, find the center of the bounds of the object itself, and then just do a minimum distance, and that'll work instead of having to have it encompass the
Wait,
entire.
work to do what? Like
Well, I figure you mean because you're saying a player object is too big, it won't encompass the entire player, so it'll never actually pull them, right? Because you have that line that checks to see that the bounds of the attract rune are encompassing the entire bounds of the object collider, right?
right.
So instead, what we could do is just say, as long as it's inside the collider and the center of the object's
Well,
bounds
I
are.
want it to be like well, maybe we could change this with the change of the shape, but that was the one form function thing about it was like the
Well, the form function is just how big the collider is, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be like that. You have to be the entirely. I think having to be entirely inside it could make, like you said, for the player be kind of weird and buggy. Instead of having a, or like even for big objects can kind of feel weird and buggy. Um, but if we just have it like the form and function there, in my opinion, is the angle that you're putting it on and the what you call it, the size of the collider itself will be the form and function there. But
I was saying that I wanted it to be like if I drew a tiny one on a wall, right? I could put an apple up to it and the apple would get stuck there, but I wouldn't. It'd be too weak to pull me, right?
we could have strength be just relative to size and literally have a pull force. Um, like we could have a if the like a check off of like if the force of the thing is greater than your this much of your mass or like if your mass is this much and the force is this much, then we do the shake and pull. Otherwise, we do a light push on your rigid body in that direction. Like we could scale it or something, right?
I don't want.
Um,
So I did think about doing something like that, where like, oh, you know, it'll do a light force on you, or like lightly pull you if you're too big, or if you're just outside the area. It felt bad that doing it that way, and
I do worry
unintuitive,
that
and
there though I worry though that the other way around of it like just not working on you sometimes is gonna feel counterintuitive because you can't see how big you are.
yeah, but
Um,
we could easily teach that with like, okay, here's an apple, here's a box, here's you, here's walls with all those
eh,
sizes,
I
right?
don't
Like
know. I don't love the idea that it has to be encompass the whole object, but we can figure it out.
I'm
Maybe I could be wrong about it when we get that. I'm not like passionate about that. I just my gut feeling is that that feels weird. to me, but I could be wrong. Alright.
I'll say it felt weird to me when when I drew a tiny square on the wall and I got pulled to it, personally.
Hmm.
But if we change the form of the rune, that's gonna have to go either way. We'll just have to figure out another way to do it. I also thought of a thing where like, like what if you have to do two symbols and you have to be between them or something like that, and like link them, or something a little more complicated. I just haven't thought of the what the form stuff is for it. Um,
Hmm.
The other thing I'll say, I'm not super passionate about that. I am decently passionate about the locking into place, though, just because here's another thing with the locking in place is in a game where you can carry things around and where there's physics on those things, and where I could drop a rock anywhere and put it, like a piece of metal up against that rock at any diagonal that I want, right? I could probably break most puzzles just by carrying around a thing that I could post up against walls and things like that.
Well, that's going to be inherent to the fact that you can grow things. We need to design around that.
Wait,
Like you can,
grow? I
like,
don't mean growing them. I just mean like you just by placing things. If you can repel and attract at any angle, right? Uh,
hmm
and a lot of puzzles are about traversal, and we don't want you to be able to take a diagonal repel rune, and all you have to do is carry around one thing and lean it up against a wall, and then put the repel rune on there. It's just a very easy way to break a lot of things, I feel like.
Yeah, but can't you just like use the grow, like put something on the ground, shrink it, then put it in the grow rune and stand on top of it and grow up with it?
Uh, Sorry, say that again. Like
I
the
can I can either grow myself to get over that traversal puzzle, or I can put an object down and grow that object to make it big enough for me to jump over, or I could even probably jump on top of an object that's growing and grow and rise up as it grows, which
yeah,
is kind of cool.
yeah. Those I
But
see as
that's
pretty
the same.
legitimate things,
But
and
that's the same thing. Like it's actually easier to do that than it is to do the repel rune.
well, there's a hole in the ground. If there's a hole in the ground that you're trying to repel yourself across to the other side, the growing's not necessarily going to help you.
Yeah, I'd be fine with them repelling them across a hole. That sounds cool.
That would be cool for if there was one puzzle that we had designed that way, but I'm just saying, I really do. I think the ability to repel in any direction is going to lead to that's like people are just going to solve a lot of the puzzles with that. More so, I
I
think,
don't think that's
than
gonna
the
be
growing.
such a big deal, honestly. I think that'll be, um, I think it'll just naturally, like we can design around that if we find that to be an issue, and I think it'll naturally, like one, I'm not even sure I care if people do that, and two, even if they, I'm not even sure that that is going to be as big of an issue as you might think, because I think that'll be finicky and weird and hard to nail all the time, especially depending on like, okay, they're gonna carry this one object. How much force is the repel rune actually going to provide? Like, is it relative to the size of the object itself? Is it relative to the size of the repel rune?
It's
If it's
relative to the
relative to the
eyes of the
size of the
size of the object itself. I have some very specific puzzles with that property in mind.
All right. Well, if it's relative to the size of the object itself, one that is a little unintuitive to me because I mean they can learn it, I guess, but it is like weird that an object that's bigger.
Well, it works really well with it if you think of it in terms of like it has to be encompassed by the rune.
Well,
Because
then at that point, it's really technically relative. It's just it's indirectly relative to the size of the rune, right? But really, but like if you just made it relative to the size of the rune, it would be kind of cool to have draw a really big rune, real big repel force on a tiny object. You shoot it like a fucking cannonball. That would be kind of cool, in my mind, in my opinion. But I mean, and by having it be
So
forced to be encompassing, then you kind of get that already. You're kind of getting that
the puzzle
effect.
that I did I tell you the my shoot the giant orb up into the sky puzzle idea with that?
It's possible. I don't fully remember.
So like I wanted to have these pedestals basically with you can hardly see it, but there's like a crown thing up there on that tower, and I wanted to have the crown like floating above these things, and you'd place the little orbs that you made for the horror game there to to activate things, to open doors, yada yada yada. And then hopefully you would notice once I redo this so that the silhouette is a little more obvious that the crown is separate from the tower, that there's a crown above like this huge thing up here. Maybe you can travel up there and the doors are all locked, and then you're like, I wonder how I get up there. And then there's like basically like a ramp, right? And what you have to do is take one of the orbs, grow it huge, put a huge repel rune big enough to fit the orb on a wall, and then like shoot it up a ramp to where all these islands are going to be rotating around this big one, to where it's caught by this thing. Uh, it's within the some radius of the crown of this thing, and then it'll get sucked in, and the doors will open on the tower.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you could still achieve that with just having the force be, you know, tied to the size, which it already indirectly is. Just simplify it by just saying the size of the rune is what defines the force, not the size
Uh,
of the object.
yeah. I also the reason. Yeah, I mean we can try that. I'm a bit more amenable to that, but I do think that's another recipe for like having you not knowing the input force of the repel, having that be entirely tied to the size of it, and not knowing how much the player is going to be able to, like uh, what the player is going to be able to reach in any given area, depending on how big they draw it, could become a problem easily.
Yeah,
But
we'll design around it. Who cares? That's awesome.
that
I like the idea that you can just fucking do that kind of thing. Like it just means that we can't make all of our puzzles. You have to be up high. And we can really, mess with stuff. If you want, we can have areas of like, if you really don't want, we can make the general repel a little weaker and have like areas of like rune amplification or something, where you draw your rune on this, and it's real, and it gets way more powerful, and and then that's like the spot where you can blast your cannonball up into the sky.
I'm a little bit more amenable to the repel rune and size thing because there will be fall damage. We're on the same page about that, right?
Sure. I mean, maybe. I guess I'm trying to decide if I care. I don't want this to be a frustrating experience. I'm all about like this is not Breath of the Wild to me. This is The Witness, I guess. More in that sense of like this is a puzzle solving experience. It's not
Well,
a
in
survival.
that sense, then we should like if it's more the witness, then we definitely like then it's just about puzzles. It's less about like exploring with the weird properties of them,
I
right?
mean, it is about exploring, but we don't need to make it frustrating to make it like to me, fall damage could be frustrating. So you don't need to make it frustrating to make it
I just think
fun
if you
to
can
make
launch
it.
yourself across the whole map, especially if you can do the diagonal, especially if it takes into account every angle, and especially if you could do the diagonal, there's got to be some lever to keep the player from just speedrunning all over the place with that shit.
I kind of think who cares? I think it's fun and they should be allowed to do it. Just allowed to fucking rocket themselves into the air. That was my biggest frustration with Tears of the Kingdom is that they put these artificial limits on things in a way that really annoyed me. That really turned me off of that game. I don't know how if you actually wind up playing it.
I'm still saving it for Christmas break, so and I still don't really want to know much about it. But like
They,
those
they put fucking guardrails where I don't think guardrails should have been, and it significantly limited my enjoyment of the game. Um,
I think you should be able to do lots of fun things with the runes, but I've always envisioned this as a game where you're killing yourself quite frequently by accident.
I don't see it as that, but I just don't want to be frustrating. I'd rather it just be fun and enjoyable. Like it's not a survival game. It's not about like it's about seeing cool things, experiencing cool things. There, yeah, maybe there are like lava pools that you will die in and then respawn somewhere nice and conveniently checkpointed. But I don't see it as
I mean, you're
a
not gonna, there's no penalty for dying, right? You just appear where you just were. It's just a mechanism to keep you from, you know,
But that's
jumping
the
all
thing.
over the map.
I don't see why we need to keep people from jumping all over the map.
Because I want to have I want to have a lock and key system that is, I don't want it to be totally open. I want a lock and key, Zelda style, Zelda, old school Zelda style. Like,
I don't know. I don't
you have to know
agree.
this by the, you were on the same page with this about, like, you have to know this rune by the, we know that we can design these puzzles here because we know the player will have learned this rune by now because they had to get here, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
well,
want
I'm
that.
on that there. Yeah, that's fine. But that is a like I think we can design that kind of puzzle situation still. Like, rocketing on top of something doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get that the access to every single secret is from above. Um, I just think it's fine to let them play with their tools. Um,
I'm too. I just think there should be consequences for using the tools in a way that launches you across the map.
hmm.
I think there should be
We can.
consequences for using the tools. Like, it shouldn't
We
just
don't need to
be.
solve this problem now, but right now my personal opinion is that I think
And like, designing vertical areas is not going to be fun for, like, I'm already thinking through all the vertical areas that I'm going to be designing with, like, the fact that you will die if you fall from here in mind. Like, I really really
well,
I'm
isn't the frustration just that you fell, not that you like isn't dying just a extra fuck you?
dying is a dying is a way to keep you from getting, well, it's a way of, dying is a consequence, that basically just puts you back where you were, that says
Well, your consequences you
you
fell
can't
at
get
this
here
point.
this way.
If anything, actually, now that I think about it, it might be depending on how our checkpointing system works. It could be a rougher consequence than not dying, because then you might have a farther way to walk back.
I mean, we could just checkpoint them whenever they
I mean,
draw a
once they have the
rune.
door rune, who cares? They can just draw a door and walk back, which
Yeah.
I also think is kind of cool. It gives them
That
plenty of
and that's
experiment.
another thing. The original door pitch, remember, was like, this is a way, this is the Dark Souls ladder rune, right? It's like, I got to the top of this, right? Now I'm gonna put a door here so I can get there more easily. That was
You
the
can
original.
still do that. It depends on how far, like, you're imagine. I don't know how big these repel runes are going to be and how easy they're going to be to draw big, but I don't know how big the force is going to
I
be.
mean,
Like,
currently they're very easy to draw because they're just squares. But once
yeah,
they're more
like,
around, but like,
yeah, they're going to be. They could easily be difficult to draw big, and that could just be a thing. And like, if they achieve the
that's true.
really big,
We could,
yeah.
that could be a lever for, like, preventing people from doing too much.
The average person, but someone that's willing to spend the time and figure it out, then go ahead. That sounds really cool that you did
I mean,
that.
that honestly, I think the most frustrating thing in this game, the area where we have to avoid frustration, is when someone takes the time to draw something that takes a long time and it doesn't classify as they think it's going to classify. I think
Yeah,
that's
well,
gonna.
I think that's going to be alleviated by a feedback system, which still that's top of my agenda too. But I don't know that the feedback system needs to be in for the vertical slice. We'll see. Um, but yeah, we'll mess around with it. I mean, it 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 definitely well, like we both have ideas of how the puzzles will work. That is totally a thing that that playtesting will help us figure out. Um, you know, we can make puzzles that have the guardrails, puzzles that don't, and see how people feel about it. Right?
Well, I like I said, so with stuff like the controls and whatever, and like what's easy for toggle and this and that, and drawing one button, two button, I'm always willing to take feedback on that stuff. But there is a there is a like for me, there if someone says I think this is too punishing, I think this is I don't like that, this isn't the type of design I like, it frustrates me. That's not a like I like to make I want to make a game that's my vision, whether or not people like it or not, that has my intent
Well,
on it.
yeah, but it should be our vision, but also but we want to, like, my version of the vision is something that is fun, an enjoyable thing that, like, I don't enjoy frustrating things in games. Like, I think games should have, like, we're not doing a Dark Souls game, right? So in my feeling is, uh, take away barriers to let people to get out of the way of the player having fun. Um,
I'm
maybe
not,
I'll change my
I'm just
mind over
let
time,
me just put
but
it this way. Fun is not the fun is not my number one thing I'm trying to instill in I would like to instill in the player with this game. What I would like to instill in the player is a sense of wonder, a sense of wanting to explore. Like that's my main thing. And I think if you can get anywhere too easily, for me that feeling always would disappear in a game like
well,
that.
I also think that we can tamp down the repel rune, like the force of it, and then that solves all the problems anyway. Like, if we just have the force be relative to the size, and then but like tamp it down, it doesn't mean, yeah, they could maybe draw a huge one, but if we make it hard to do that and don't give them a lot of spaces where they could do that, then we will have an upper limit on how big of a repel rune you can make and how big of a force you can put on. And then maybe we do have things like I think some amplifier areas could be interesting already, like have places where there are already alchemical symbols drawn and you draw your symbol inside it and it enhances it. Could be a neat thing. um
Maybe I'd have to see what the enhance. We'd have to figure
think
out what
about the
the what
enhancement.
the enhancement is and does. I'm fine with I'm not super against the size, determining it. Like you said, it already indirectly does. I just think I'm more so talking about like fall damage and ways to just jump the fence essentially. Like I think there can be plenty of stuff that we intend in the game where players can jump the fence and we are like, yes, cool, that you can do that, that's a valid way to do it. But I also think there should be areas where they have to have shown some they have to have done a thing that we want them to do to get there. They have to have learned something or you have this rune or things like that.
Mhm. Well, we don't need to solve it right now. I think a lot of it will still, I mean, we still have to do our own playtesting, like, internally. So, you know, just design the puzzles as you want to design them for now, and we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, the first one I'm gonna do is obviously, but actually it actually is directly related to the conversation we're having right now, which is like the first one I wanted to do was like you have you have three boxes. There's only so much room on the wall, and you need to make a staircase out of these different sized boxes. So you need to draw different size attract runes on the wall in the right spots to put the box. Something like that, right? Like where the size of the box
Mhm.
matters in order to fit it within the bounds of the thing and get it to actually stick.
Yeah, I mean, we could. I mean, I think that's a good puzzle. I think that's a great puzzle. I also think there's gonna be a weird thing of you'll have to make it high ceilings because you don't want the player draw to be obviously able to draw on the ceiling and get themselves up that way. Also, I think I don't know. There's still something unintuitive to me about how it needs to encompass the entire block, but
Yeah, I mean that's why I was gonna do
Mhm.
boxes first because it's a box shape. It's a good way to
Mhm.
tutorialize. This thing needs to fit in this shape.
Well, in the end, we're gonna get away from boxes in general, like because we can't. The box collider will not work. That is just known fact. It's just never gonna work because the fact that the box collider cannot be rotated around the z-axis. We either need to do a mesh collider and make a mesh that is invisible, but a mesh uh, that reflects a box if we still want it to be box shaped, or we just use the column collider or the sphere collider.
We could do sphere collider and fit the. I
Capsule
mean,
collider. That's the one.
we could fit the. We could do, even though they're boxes, we could just. So, but I would say like
But
until we
doing
can figure
inside
out.
that's actually going to be a bigger, much harder equation to solve. Determining whether something's inside a sphere is harder than determining whether it's inside a cube, which is why you can't do the rotation of the z-axis box stuff because it becomes more complicated to do that bounds equation.
If I turn it to a capsule collider, the code in there will not determine
It'll work,
correctly.
I think. I think it'll still work. I just think it's just like a performance consideration. Like depending on how many times you're running that inbounds code, which I guess only really happens at the start, like once it's activated.
Well, I
Um,
think it happens. I don't know. You're the one looking at the code, but I thought it happened while you were while you were touching the collider. Anytime you're touching the collider until you are attracted.
yeah. So we would probably want to turn that into just happen once, or happen it while you're touching, but not at like not part of the coroutine, basically. Which I guess technically it is. But we don't have to worry too much about
But
that part
I do
specifically.
think
But
for the
the
vertical slice for the puzzles, like so, if we're going to change that aspect of it, because I had a couple puzzles built around that aspect of it,
that
like
needs to be changed before the box start part. Sorry, it needs to be changed before the vertical slice. It does need to be changed to a capsule collider. I'll do that when I do my changes here. But sorry, go ahead.
um the so as you know, I had planned on doing some puzzles where the puzzles relied on you drawing a shape and putting a thing inside that shape for that thing, because it was the only form factor thing we have for that rune right now. If you can come up with a better one and design it in as you're redoing it, that's fine by me. But let me know sooner or later, because I literally, if we're not doing the if we're not doing moving stuff and we're not doing the fitting inside of stuff, I literally only have like a couple puzzles that have that are like grow some shrink
Well, it
yourself,
still
go into
works
mouse hole
as
type
a
of
fitting
puzzle.
inside stuff. Like the form factor there is just that it is the bigger you are, the stronger the force. And that is the form factor part of it. And like obviously the shape of the rune that we make will be circular so that it matches a capsule. Um,
But
um,
so if that's gonna be the thing, if size, if it is the size, then why not make it? It has to be inside the thing, because that's how else do you communicate like whether or not, like what other intuitive way to say like this will work on this versus not this is there, in terms of like size of drawing the rune?
well, yeah, I guess the way you've designed it is that it is a pause and pull. It's a like all your stuff is bang boom, right? Is is stuff that has uh strong stages to it, I guess is the way is like the phrase we use.
Yeah, I agree with
So
you.
like in the context of a something weak, you would like a weak pull, you would just do that and then have it go boop and like plop down. But I guess that doesn't make a ton of sense with the freeze it in the air thing because it's clearly strong enough to hold it there.
Like if we were still doing the
Um,
farming game, I think the weaker attract would be more interesting, because it's like, oh, I could collect stuff with this. But I don't see this as that kind of game. I see this more as a like, I need this thing here
All right,
type of game.
here's the compromise then. I think in terms of intuitive design, you you can put your thing object in anywhere on it, and then there's a stage before the shake stage that will slowly lerp the object to the center of the bounding box.
So I did I tried that, but the downside to that is if you ever want to make it, if you ever do want to make a giant one to say stick all the AI to the ground so they can't chase you somewhere, they're all stuck in this one spot, and then you have to do like a stacking thing with them, which I tried for a little bit. I tried a lot of iterations of this, and I'm pretty
We can make
happy
it
with the one we have.
a rigid body force, but kind of thing.
But like I don't want it to be too physicsy in that regard. Like I want it to be I need this thing here, boom. I need this thing here,
But
I
then,
need to fit
but
inside.
the problem, my problem with it then is that it is if it's not showing you that there's some component
Oh,
of this
oh, oh.
has to fit inside,
So
it
I also
becomes
pictured it as
less
like
intuitive.
having a beam coming out of it. So like the beam.
Yeah, I understand that aspect. That's how I picture it too. Of like there's a beam coming out, and it's like you're getting these lines that pull in, like suck in or pull out or whatever. And I imagine as you get closer to the shake timer going down to 0, you get more lines that like appear, like more particles that appear and start moving faster and faster and faster
Something like that.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no,
And then boom, you have like a puff and it shoots, and I think
now
it's gonna look really cool. I like your bang boom approach of I think that's the terminology we'll use, bang boom approach to spell activations. Um, I just want it to be a little more intuitive.
so
In
now
terms of
I
like,
would be willing to change it to where, but just make sure you save my original one so we can always go back to it. But like
well,
the
the Git will do that.
but uh the yeah, but then I gotta ask you. Then I gotta ask you how to do it, how to get it out of the Git. But like without breaking anything. But like
All you have to do is find the code, and you'll be able to copy it manually. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
but like the uh I would be amenable to one where it's like there is no beam coming out. It doesn't have to fit into the it doesn't have to fit into the thing. It just attracts or repels everything, including you, as soon as you touch it. I do think that it does always feel a little weird as a player when you just touch the edge and you can never ever get to the middle. I also pictured it as like if you got
Well,
sucked.
that's why I was thinking that you would do the distance from the center of the bounding box, basically.
If we did it that way, and I do have code in there for this, or I probably commented out, but like I would be amenable to one where it's just like there's no thing coming, there's no like beam coming out of it or anything like that. It's just once you enter that um, area, this might have been the timer thing, a timer takedown or something, where like if you're in there for a certain amount of time, it just
More like a trap, right? Where like you step into some sort of sphere collider trap, it triggers, and then if you're in there when the timer goes off, you get hit.
sort of like yeah like you it would be a real short timer like not even a second probably, but like basically yes like
There is something cool about that. Like if we do have fall damage and you are being chased by these enemies, and you just put like this repel rune down on the ground, and they are these little traps. Um, it's kind of neat. It
I
almost makes you want to be able to do layered runes of like a repel rune inside a attract rune or something.
but like so
Like
it would be cool if just like an arc lightning shot out and it just like went and it was like here I'm attaching to you on the one end and I'm attaching to the normal of the spot where if you were to fly directly towards me at this point, this is where you'd land, and then just sucks you to it. That would be neat, and I did consider that for a while. But ultimately I thought like more
that's more
puzzle
like a magnet or
solutions.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, more puzzle solutions though I think come from the fitting inside of things thing. Because like, what if I need to walk past an area, but I need it to contain a box to contain something smaller than me, and now and I do that right. I draw it smaller than me, and it tracks the box, but not me. So I can easily walk. I can put the box there, but also walk past this ledge
Yeah,
or whatever.
I think it works better when you have like the biggest problem with that is the player will never know the exact size that works, and we could probably design around that because we can design things that are always way bigger or way smaller than the player. but there is a fact that you will, if you're ever trying to use that rune on yourself, you'll know the approximate size, but you're never gonna know the exact size, which is gonna get weird. Um, and I don't know. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe that isn't annoying, but that my worry is that becomes that could become frustrating. But the my compromise for that was, well, if there's feedback, at least you have an idea. At least you can easily know why right from the get-go. It's you can see the feedback and you know immediately what happened, right? This thing, it floats to the middle and then it realizes that it's not encompassed in the bounding box and then drops to the ground, right? It doesn't do the attract or repel part. It does a shake and then at the end of the shake it just drops it because it's too
Yeah,
big or
I get that. I everything. I'm on board with that, all except for like I don't. Ultimately I do not. I am ultimately against always sucking to the middle for the big version of the rune
Well, I
thing
guess the
and the.
point being, well, I guess if you have a really big rune,
If you have a really big rune and you want to
mm,
say, and there's AI chasing you, and you want to, and you want that, like I think it would just look, it would look funny, and it would be funny the first time it happened, but I think it would look silly, and after that, and just not be great. Is like the if you have a big rune area, having everything that walks in that area get sucked into the middle and stacked on top of each other would be just a little too silly for what I think
maybe
we're.
I don't know. Like we could probably make it work. Like do it kind of like a black hole scenario kind of thing, or just have them all come and collide in the middle and then have it break off or something. But
I
I don't
would.
know.
We could also just do that as its own black hole separate rune that casts its
Mm,
own 3D sphere rather than a directional thing.
I don't know. I mean, design the puzzles. We'll have Dave and Jeff play test it and see what they say. But I'm still not completely sold on it. But I guess I feel better about it than I did when I first heard about it. Um,
Like okay, so for the vertical slice, can I count on that being the way it works with the encompassing?
I mean, whatever. We'll just change it if we decide to change
Yeah,
it. It's not
exactly.
going to be that big a deal. And like changing that is super easy.
If
You
if
just
if people don't like it, or if it doesn't lead to as many, if it doesn't, create as many puzzle opportunities as I'm envisioning that it will, then I'm happy to change it. But like, yeah,
the
I
question is how intuitive is it and how frustrating. Those are the two questions, the two concerns. How intuitive is it, and does it get frustrating not knowing if it will affect you?
I
Um,
don't say anything about it to Jeff and Dave. What I'll do
yeah,
is
well,
I'll literally make the first puzzle like there's three different size of boxes and there's only so much wall
yeah.
and where are you
I
gonna
like that
draw?
puzzle.
Like
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So I think yeah. Well, I'm happy to change it if they don't. If nobody if nobody gets it, I'm happy to change it.
Yeah.
But like I'm not even going to worry about putting feedback in. If you want to put feedback in for that, by all means go ahead. But I was going to try that without feedback, because if they can get it without feedback, I'm sure they'll get it with the feedback.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. They are our playtest group at this point. We should start looking for places that would also give us grants to make this game.
I tried
Like
to
I know you
get
said
that
that in the
Thinky
Jonathan
grant.
Blow one,
Yeah.
but like yeah, but we didn't have this game at that point, right?
I should have. I mean, it was. We had it, but it wasn't as far along. It wasn't far along enough to really show
No, it
at that
wasn't. It
point.
wasn't where it is now. So
But it's you know, I did the. I still think to this day, until I start making puzzles for this game, the best puzzles I've ever made were in the One Frog's Incredibly Bad Day, whatever the fuck the name of that game was.
hmm.
Game. They just came together so well, so I submitted that one. But you also had to submit a video, and I probably should have also showed the One Frogs, but I showed my comic panel one, and I think the mistake I made was using that video because that is not the type of puzzle that's like a what I call an if then puzzle where it's just like it's almost like old school adventure game or Monkey Island puzzles where it's like what happens when I do, when I put this and this together. Oh, it's always a unique thing. It's always an if then for this special case.
Mm.
And I think they saw that type of puzzle design and was like, this is not the type of, this, we're
Game they're
looking for
looking
more
for,
like
yeah.
Sokoban and like box pushing and that sort of, or uh, like what's that, Zachtronics, like a Zachtronics game is like the ultimate Thinky Grant game.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the grow shrink. I do need to put in a thing that basically says like, don't grow anymore if you can't fit. Um, that's the only thing I need to do, I think, for that. And then that one will be. I was gonna basically say if Dave wants to, if Dave does want to design, he was asking like for the Git and stuff. So I hope he'll try to design some. But I was gonna say, Dave, do all the grow shrink ones because I think those ones are going to be. I could make them with the with Pro Builder or with areas for it with Pro Builder, or just use all the random low poly like models that I have from that one package. But ultimately, I think the best type of puzzles for the grow shrink are going to be areas specifically designed in Blender to keep that to have that stuff in mind. So like there's like a mouse hole and you have to shrink yourself down and go into that and grow over here and do that. And I think that would be good for somebody who's good at modeling in Blender.
Yeah. We could yeah, I mean that seems like an easy cool one to do. The shrink yourself down and move around and do all the other shit.
the
We
the
do need to we're gonna need to put some stuff in for like how big you can get if you're bigger than the room, we have to like prevent you from getting any bigger, stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. That's the one thing I still need to do on that one. And it shouldn't be too hard, right? It should just be like, if my collider is touching anything but the ground, then stop
Stop
growing.
me growing,
Or
yeah,
maybe
something like that.
just your head. Maybe it's just your head that determines it. I also
Yeah, maybe like bigger than the height of the room, or bigger than the or bigger than the yeah. If it hits something, probably might be the way to do
There
it.
is also
I
the
don't know. We'll have
problem
to
right
figure it
now
out.
of if you grow yourself too big, you just can't draw on the ground anymore.
Yeah, well, that's easy to change. That's just make the size of the drawing stuff relative to the size of you, and that's another thing we'll need to figure out of like. So like the solution to that is make the drawing stuff is make that stuff timed, right? But then like so that you can never get stuck. Um, but yeah, we'll have
What
to
do you mean
figure
make
it
it?
out.
What do you mean make it timed? Like,
Like you only grow for you grow and then you like once you leave the grow rune you are only big for 10 seconds or something.
oh, okay, so you
Um,
immediately start shrinking back down.
that
Yeah,
way people can't get completely stuck in like, oh shit, I made myself too big and now my lines are that I draw are too thick, so I can't actually draw in this area to shrink myself back down. Um, that stuff could get annoying.
I did originally, when I was originally thinking a long, long time ago about the grow shrink rune, I did want to have it so if you were in a small area when you started to regrow, you would die, but that does seem a little harsh now.
Mm.
Um,
We'll figure that out. Right now trying to figure out why my object is not requesting control. My grab won't request control to grab it off of the thing again, but I know it can do it. I use the force command. It must just be not hitting this. The raycast must not be hitting for some reason.
did you redo the raycast? Because it can. I don't think I ever made it a layer mask to have it not collide with the player, or maybe I did.
I did not, but I right now the goal is just to get I'll go for low hanging fruit and stuff, but the goal right now is just to get to replicate your functionality while also replacing it to use my new system. That way you have stuff to look at and can see like how you would replicate it for new runes and stuff. Alright, so that takes it, shoots it out, and then it gives it, but it doesn't request control. So raycast, it hits the rune, and then what happens? Raycast, it hits the rune. It tries to get the object controllable script, which it should get. It should request control, but it doesn't. What's happening?
Do a print to see if it even gets there.
The loading up with prints.
What do you
Trying to
what
figure
do you
out.
think the font that I picked for the effect? I love it.
Oh, I wasn't looking at. Hold on.
Called Hexencoddle.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks playful and slightly like not like slightly exotic, I guess is the right word. Maybe the word I want to use.
I
Like,
was looking for slightly Celtic because it's like it's runes, but
yeah,
like
I guess that makes sense.
but like
Like,
you
that's
do
pretty
the
good.
all uppercase it actually. It's a lot weirder looking.
Raycast, raycast hit. So it doesn't raycast. Try get component. It's not working for some reason. Why won't it get the object controllable component? Where are you? You have your fruit. You're there. It has the object controllable component, but it doesn't actually get it. Why is that?
Hmm. Weird. Why are the snow walking sounds not working?
How is this possible? Raycast hit. What does it hit? Maybe I'm not hitting. Maybe I'm actually hitting the. Maybe my raycast is going through. Is the collider getting turned off or something weird? Could be something weird like that. Yes, it's not actually hitting. It is not actually hitting the fruit. But once it goes out of there, it hits the fruit. So why is that? That's so strange. Oh, is it because that's why? Yeah, I see what you mean with the layer mask thing. It's just hitting the rune. It's just gonna hit the rune over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's
I'm
probably
hitting the rune
not getting to
first.
the thing
It's
that
not getting there. Yeah.
you just need to
Uh,
put the layer. You should be able to.
I should just do that fix I needed to do anyway. The runes need to be on their own layer.
Yeah, exactly. You just need to make a layer
Yeah,
for the thing you wanted to hit.
yeah. They were this fix was coming anyway. Rune layer. All right. And the rune.
Shader to particles, standard on lit.
Oh no, I don't even. Can't even see what I had in this variable field because my fucking face is blocking it on the stream. I.
Look at that. It already has a layer mask here. Already has a layer mask. And player hold drop.
This sucks. What's this? Yeah, the old. So don't. Which one of these fucking audio?
There we go. Stole control. Give control, but I can take it away because I am master control. I don't know why it seems the force of the is somehow weaker. I must be calculating something slightly differently, but it works. Let's see. Let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, that still works. I don't know why that worked. Because I really needed to. I didn't stop the coroutine. I didn't put that in yet, but it did work. Basically, I can grab it out while it's in the middle of attracting. It probably is because I'm just overriding it by holding it. I wonder if I grab it, release it right before, if it would just shoot. Probably. Oh well, I put to draw a square. Okay. Yep, it just goes back there. Funny. At that time, does it give it, is it more oomph if it's further back? Is that what it is? Yeah, it looks like it.
Wait for what?
For the attract rune, does it get more, is it faster the further back it is from it?
I
It
don't
must be.
know.
Can you set your attract rune and test it real quick? I want to make sure, see how mine measures up.
Uh, so
I actually don't have the player stuff in yet too. I still have to add in because I figured the player is a custom case that needs to be handled special.
factor.
Do you have any apples? Yeah. All right, now pull it back and
Able to pull it back for some reason.
can you not grab it? Oh, you're drawing on the collider. It probably is the same collider thing. If you're inside the collider, it lets you grab it. Yours seems as though like to be have way more oomph than mine. You have to get inside
Why
the collider.
that would change?
I don't know what that is. Yeah, maybe I deleted some logic, but the logic that you have here is um, maybe just copy and paste your attract rune into Discord at some point, just so I can double check to make sure I didn't remove anything that wasn't supposed to be removed. My code's way shorter, but I only found one thing that had add force on it, so that's the only thing I assumed that was doing it. And that seemed to be based on the distance of the rigid body of the object to the attract point end, which is, I assume, is where the raycast hits. I think that's where that is. But I think I got rid of that code. Object attract point end is just where the raycast is, yeah. Yeah, so that's just where the raycast hits. So it's not. I do still have that code in here. That is not any different. Hmm.
Here, let me see. What does yours look like?
It's just a little wimpy. I mean, I could boost it up, but I'm more concerned with why it's different than um, you know. It's a little bit wimpy. Like,
I don't know, just kick it up, I guess. It's fun.
there's still something weird about it. I'm gonna figure it out because it is weird that it's not that's not the same. It should be the same. So something's wrong in that sense.
Hold on, let me look at the
That shake still looks the same, right? Looks about right. It's not a weaker shake, right?
no, it was the shake was pretty subtle. Although yours might look different. Let me see what mine.
Yes, do your shake real quick if I can go back and do yours. Could just be a setting I haven't turned off. Like maybe did I not make it kinematic or not kinematic but maybe there's something
My shake does also appear to be a little more intense than yours.
yeah. Seems like the whole thing is a little weaker, right? Like maybe there must be something I'm not doing to the rigid body
Is
to
the what is the mass of your fruit?
oh wow, excuse me. That's you don't ask a lady the mass for fruit. That's could be it because I did remake the fruit. Um, 1.
Mine is also 1. Huh.
Okay.
Angular drag is 0.5. Or sorry, 0.05.
Yeah, that's that. Drag 0. I don't know. I'll just paste your code. I'll look at it. Whatever it is, it's minor.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Um,
It's in
it's
the Discord right now.
yeah, it's solvable. Whatever it is, I'll figure it out. Um, but look how much less code there is. I'll delete all the other code now. No more if statements. I don't know how long yours is, but my whole thing is only 216 lines.
Mine is 600 or so, 560, but also there's like I put a lot of space between my things.
Yeah, I
I
get rid
want
of all your white space. It's the first thing I do.
I
Is get
just
rid of your white space.
I will probably need to ask you for help if I need to change anything in yours because I don't know all the fancy
Yeah, I
shit.
plan on showing you how it works at some point. Yeah, but basically, they I don't know if you're looking, but at a high level, anything that can control an object, that can take control and do something else with an object, descends from object controller. Um, and you have these methods that you can override, but so like just so that you have clean setup and release, you have this take control setup that you override, and take control or release control setup that you override. And this is basically like, okay, before I control this, what do I need to have to be done? For the attract rune, you turn off gravity, turn off velocity, and turn off angular velocity. So this only runs if you actually take control of it. And then before you release, this stuff doesn't matter, but you just need to turn the gravity back on. So that's all that you need to do. Then to actually get control of the object, all you need to do is ask for it and just say, here on trigger stay, you all like where you had a bunch of if then statements here. All you need to do now is just check is do run request control, which is part of this already. It's a default method. You don't need to override it or anything. It's
Okay,
already in there.
so none of the did any of the actual like the methods that you know the
Your
did the
method's also the same. They just got simpler. So like instead of having to do all these if statements to handle specific logic, right? Of like if it has this, or if it has this, or if it has, or if it's the player versus if it's a object that the player's holding versus if it's an object the player isn't holding, but it could be held, stuff like that. That's all handled now by the object itself. The object will determine if it will give you control or not. And we can hold that logic in here. Right now, the way I do it is just I have a Boolean that says you can force take it, or if you don't force take it, just you can't take it from something else. That's the simplest way to do it. But we can put priority levels in here if we want to. Um, but all you need to know is that you will request control, and if you don't get and if you get control, this method will return true. If you don't get control, it will return false. So then you can just keep spinning on it, keep trying to get control. And once you get control, you can start the coroutine. You know what it probably is? It probably is I'm starting multiple coroutines. I probably need to load this into a list of coroutines. That's probably why it's all weird. I probably need to load this into a list of coroutines. And oh no, I already have that. That's in here. Never mind. Yeah. But I think it'll wind up making things shorter and easier to handle. And also, like for stuff like the grow shrink rune, that stuff it's not a controller. Like it doesn't take control. It doesn't need to take control. So you can just handle that in the update method like you normally do.
Gotcha. Kinda. I'll, you know, if I have any issues using
Yeah.
it.
It'll once you see some
I
examples.
mean, the requested control actually doesn't sound that tough. I thought when you said you were gonna replace stuff with coroutines, that meant like you were gonna get rid of all the if statements everywhere throughout, even within the.
No, a lot of them are gone. Yeah, they are mostly gone. Coroutines, like so, your whole routine for your shake and stuff. That whole code. All that code is right. Where is it? Where did I put it? IEnumerator. Here it is. It's. Let's see here.
Yeah, I may not
Um,
be able to change
that.
that. Like, I don't really know what a coroutine is, or like, you know, I don't know how to work with that stuff. So if I need to change anything, I will probably need your help.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's 26 lines of code. This is all the code now for. Actually, this doesn't even need to be here. Because it's set here. I just need to bar. This is all the code now. This is for attracting. It just does the raycast. If it doesn't actually hit the raycast, it breaks out of the coroutine. Otherwise, here's the timer. It does the shake while it's doing the timer. And then at the end, if once it gets to the end of the shake, it does add the force.
Gotcha. I also need to fix it. I mean, we may not even get to. I might have to write the snow in to where it's like, if it really is that much of a processing burden when classifying runes and stuff, then I might need to, you know, write the snow in when the snow, how much snow is falling and stuff to account for that. But right now, I noticed when doing the repel rune, because right now the snowstorm only populates mostly in front of you and a little bit behind you, to the point where if you turn around real quick, you can sort of notice a little bit of it, but it's mostly unnoticeable. But if you repel yourself straight backwards, you clearly notice that you're like out of the snowstorm now.
Yeah, there needs to be. We need to figure it out because actually that thing was, the snow was super intense on my frame rate. I had to turn it off
I
for
could turn it
the.
way down. It's way up in terms of the numbers of particles it's generating.
Yeah,
It's
I do wonder how if there's another more efficient way people do it. I know that the way they do it is generally the way you're doing it, where the snow, the precipitation follows the camera and it's only in a little area. But I just don't know how how they make it efficient. There must be a better way than just using a straight particle system, but I don't know how that is. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna call it for now. I got proof of concept done for the trash rune. That's actually probably one of the harder ones to do now that I think about it, because the control for the, I do think that for the duplicate rune, I'm gonna let you, when you release it, I want it to kind of float above its corner so that you know that you've put it in the right spot.
okay.
Um,
That sounds good to me.
and I'll just have a little bob up and down float kind of
Are you
thing, and
doing the?
then
So you were saying you were not sure whether you're gonna do raycasts or colliders. I was thinking a good reason to do colliders actually is you know, if you have something on a table and you wanted to draw that on a wall, right? Then you know the colliders would work better to like, you know, if you wanted to do a combine, if you had a table right here, say, you know, pretend this is a 3D table,
yeah, I got what you
and you know,
mean.
and you want to put an apple right here and a knife right here, and you want to make an apple knife over here, you know, then colliders would be better because they'd be popping out from the wall and would catch all that stuff.
Yeah, and we could, like, I imagine it being like as soon as you insert it, it floats, so you don't have to have it on a table. You could just fucking insert it and it sticks it there.
I
It
do
just
like
sticks.
that property. That does make it, because I was thinking like, why would you ever really do it on a wall? Like
Yeah,
that does
but
make a good reason for you to do it on a wall.
it's just good player feedback too. It lets you know that you have it in the right spot easily. Nice, easy way to let you know that you got it right in the right place. Um, yeah, so we'll do that, and then yeah, colliders are easier to in terms of, or well, the raycast was easier to use because then I didn't have to worry about it entering and exiting as easily because it's just if it hits the raycast or not. But now that I honestly didn't even know there was a method called on collision stay or whatever. So knowing that that exists, good work. Knowing that that exists actually makes it
Yeah,
way easier.
it took that yeah, me learning that that existed really opened up the possibilities for how I could deal with that shit.
Yeah, that was easy. All right, I'm gonna call it there for tonight though, and I'll get back to work tomorrow.
Right on.
All right,
Catch you
later.
later. I will also be done.